A glitch among the stars. September 22, 2025. In orbit, beyond the orbit of Venus, the European Solar Orbiter spacecraft is conducting another observation of the Sun's corona. Routine shooting. An ordinary day. Thousands of gigabytes of data go to Earth, recording auroras, flashes, fluctuations of magnetic lines, everything that stellar physicists study day after day. But at exactly 3 hours 17 minutes and 42 seconds Universal Time, something happens. First, silence. Then there was a sharp jump in brightness data, then a dip. The monitors are dark. 1 second. 2. 3. For 3 minutes and 46 seconds, millions of stars fixed in the orbiter's field of view disappear. They don't flicker. They don't go out gradually. They just disappear, as if someone flipped a switch on the universe. And then they come back. All at once. The signal is sent to the ESA ground center in Munich. The operators think it's a transmission error, malfunction, overheating, interference from radiation. But when a telemetry engineer checks the timestamps, the blood runs cold. At the same moment, at a distance of more than 20 million kilometers, the Parker Solar Probe, an American probe observing the Sun from the other side, captures the same thing. 2 independent devices. 2 different orbits. The same disappearance of stars. The same time. It's not a glitch. It's not data noise. This is geometry. Someone or something crossed the line of sight of both satellites at the same time, at completely different angles. For this to happen, the object must be colossal, the size of a planet, and maybe more. But nothing is visible in any of the pictures. No silhouette. No shadow. It's just the lack of light. Panic begins inside the labs. Engineers check sensors, calibrate filters, and verify logs of cooling systems. The result is the same, everything is fine. The instruments worked perfectly. So it's not a mistake. One of the astrophysicists, Dr. Karen Muller, is the first to say out loud what everyone is thinking. If this is not a glitch, then we have something in front of us that can block out starlight on a scale of several astronomical units, and do it at the same time. It was as if someone had lowered an invisible curtain between the Earth and the stars. After a few hours, the video ends up in ESA's closed archives. The recording shows a flat field of stars, and then, nothing. Total darkness, as if someone had carved out a piece of space. The light returns instantly, with a clear border, like when editing a video. But the strangest thing is not the disappearance itself. And the rhythm. When the researchers accelerated the recording 20 times, it became clear that the stars disappear and return in an exact sequence, as if someone had scanned the sky with a strip of light millions of kilometers wide. This behavior cannot be explained either by the satellite's rotation or by radiation filtering. This is the movement of an object. Precise, linear, and programmed. By the evening of September 23rd, the closed data exchange system receives a message from NASA. The Parker probe has confirmed the effect. And he added a detail that made many experts stay up all night. During the stellar disappearance, the probes recorded an abnormal gravitational shift, as if space itself bent for a moment. This means that the veil did not just block the light. She was influencing space-time. Officially, not a word. No press releases, no statements. ESA placed the event in the category of instrumental anomalies, possible equipment anomalies. But those who have seen the original data know that the equipment does not lie. And when astronomers began checking background observations from observatories around the world, from Chile to Japan, the next morning, they saw the same thing. In the pictures taken at the same moment, the star fields also fell into darkness. Someone blocked the light not only in orbit, but also from the surface of the Earth. Later, an anonymous ESA employee wrote in the leaked correspondence. This is not a glitch. This is the window. It opened and closed. Since then, a strange void has remained on the official maps of the starry sky for September 22nd. An area where data is simply missing. There are no pixels, no coordinates, no timestamps. The space is cut out. As if someone didn't want us to see. What was behind the sun at that moment? Chapter 2. The object that shouldn't exist. 3 days after the blackout of the stars, the first confirmation came from the Mauna Kea Observatory in Hawaii. A new object had entered the inner solar system, small, faint, unremarkable at first glance. The preliminary designation, C/2025 Q7, Helios Bane. Astronomers assumed it was a long-period comet, another frozen wanderer from the Oort cloud. But the deeper they looked, the stranger it became. Its orbit was clean, almost mathematical, too clean. The ellipse it traced around the sun was perfect, showing none of the subtle perturbations that comets experience when solar radiation begins to melt their icy nuclei. But that was only the beginning. When the Solar and Heliospheric Observatory, SOHO, aimed its instruments toward it, something was off. Every comet's tail, driven by the solar wind, should extend away from the sun. That's the one rule that never breaks. Helios Bane's tail pointed toward the sun. At first, analysts thought it was an illusion, perhaps a projection effect, or magnetic turbulence distorting the plasma. But then it held that position. Hour after hour. The tail never moved, never shifted, as though magnetically anchored to something we couldn't see. When the team ran a simulation of the trajectory, the data broke down. Helios Bane wasn't orbiting the sun in the traditional sense, it was adjusting. Tiny corrections, measurable only at the 8th decimal place, but too deliberate to be gravitational noise. It was steering itself. On September 25, 2025, at 4:02 Universal Time Coordinated, the comet approached perihelion, the point of closest passage to the sun. By every physical law, it should have accelerated to its maximum velocity, slingshotting around our star at blistering speed. Instead, it stopped. Not slowed. Stopped. For 9 minutes and 11 seconds, its velocity relative to the sun dropped to near zero. The file became known as the Helios Bane signal. Those who examined it agreed on one point. The waveform looked engineered. Too structured, too balanced to be natural radiation noise. Meanwhile, NASA's Parker probe transmitted something equally impossible. A sudden drop in local magnetic flux at the moment of the pulse, followed by a surge of charged particles in a shape eerily similar to an interference pattern, as if the signal had passed through a structured field before reaching the probe. This implied a level of control, a design behind the emission itself. Helios Bane wasn't just reacting to sunlight. It was interacting with it. By October 1st, most of the original observation logs had vanished from public access. Astronomical databases quietly corrected timestamps, overwrote metadata, replaced Helios Bane's anomaly reports with generic cometary entries. But time-stamped screenshots survived. They showed a consistent pattern. Each ultraviolet pulse had a faint secondary echo, a reflection, not from the sun, but from behind it. That meant there was something else out there. Something in the dark space just beyond the solar limb, invisible to the naked eye, yet perfectly synchronized with Helios Bane's signal. Two sources. One visible. One hidden. And both pulsing together. If the blackout of the stars was the first whisper, Helios Bane was the reply. And the conversation had just begun. Chapter 3, The Silence Between Signals. Dr. Liane Torres hadn't slept for 31 hours. The glow of the monitors painted her face in the cold blue of obsession. Lines of spectral data scrolled endlessly, interwoven with noise filters, frequency decompositions, and deep neural analyses she coded herself after her ESA account was revoked. Her small apartment in Madrid had become a command center, 4 screens, 2 hard drives, and a wall covered with printed waveforms connected by red strings and notes scribbled in marker. Schumann harmonics, intentional. Phase shift, not random. Third echo. The more she looked, the clearer it became. The Helios Bane signal wasn't just a burst of light. It carried a structure, a recursive sequence repeating within itself, like a fractal built out of time. Each pulse contained 3 nested harmonics. Each harmonic, when slowed down 4,000 times, produced a faint digital rhythm, ones and zeros. It wasn't noise. It was data. She translated the first section into binary, then into ASCII characters. The result was meaningless, a random scatter of letters and symbols. But when she shifted the decoding base from 8-bit to 7, something formed. A single phrase, broken but unmistakable. Listen only when we do. Lien froze. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. She checked the script again, reran the algorithm, changed every possible variable. Each time, the same phrase emerged. Perfectly consistent. Hours later, she uploaded her findings anonymously to a closed astrophysics board. Within minutes, replies appeared. User, Quasar Ghost 77. We found the same sequence. You're not alone. User, Nova Loop. Are you sure this isn't an internal data artifact? Because something strange is happening, our radio arrays just went silent. Then, it began. At exactly 2:14 Universal Time Coordinated, the first major ground telescope in Chile reported total communication loss. Then Australia. Then Japan. By 2:19, every major radio observatory on Earth was down. No interference. No static. Just silence. The radio spectrum between 1 Hz and 3 GHz, the range that carries everything from cosmic background radiation to deep space telemetry, had gone dead. No hum, no bursts, no whispers from the stars. Space itself had gone quiet. Lien stared at her instruments. Her local receiver, usually filled with random background chatter from satellites, was blank. She manually tuned frequencies, nothing. She opened her old shortwave receiver, tuned it to 7.83 Hz, the Schumann resonance. For a moment, there was only static. Then, faintly, a tone emerged. Not random. Not natural. A slow, deliberate oscillation, rising and falling in the exact rhythm of the Helios Bane pulses. 3 long. Pause. 3 short. Pause. 3 long. It was Morse code for 1 letter, S. Within minutes, global communications channels were flooded with confusion. Government frequencies jammed. Civil aviation rerouted. Satellites began auto-rebooting in low Earth orbit, as if responding to a command none of them had received directly. Meanwhile, deep space monitors detected a new source of radiation, faint, oscillating in perfect sync with Helios Bane's ultraviolet output, but this time, the pulses weren't directed toward the Sun. They were aimed at Earth. At 3:41 Universal Time Coordinated, an emergency meeting was called at ESA headquarters. Every major space agency was on the line: NASA, Roscosmos, CNSA, JAXA. But the live stream kept cutting out, replaced by blank frames or distorted audio. In one of those glitched frames, for exactly half a second, a waveform appeared, identical to the Helios Bane pulse, but inverted. When later analyzed, the signal's frequency spectrum matched one thing: the human EEG pattern during deep sleep. Helios Bane was broadcasting brainwave frequencies. Back in Madrid, Lien noticed her monitors flicker. Lines of code scrolled across the screen, not from her system. She yanked the Ethernet cable, but the data kept flowing. The text compiled in. The text compiled into symbols, slowly forming letters again. Listen only when we do. Silence is how we begin. Her screens went black. The lights in her apartment dimmed. And outside her window, through the thin fog of Madrid's early dawn, the stars, those few that still shimmered since the blackout, vanished, one by one. Until only one remained. A single point of light, motionless, pulsing faintly in rhythm. The same rhythm as before. 3 long. 3 short. 3 long. By morning, global news agencies called it the Great Radio Silence. Governments denied connection to Helios Bane. But astronomers knew better. Something in space wasn't just sending signals. It was listening back. And now, for the first time, it had silenced everything else. So it could hear us better. Chapter 4, Echoes Beneath the Sun. For 72 hours, the world remained quiet. No cosmic background hiss. No telemetry from satellites. No heartbeat of the universe. It was as if the cosmos itself had drawn a breath and held it. Then, on the morning of October 4, 2025, a whisper returned. Not from deep space, but from the sun. 1. The return of the signal. At the Solar Dynamics Laboratory in Boulder, Colorado, researcher Dr. Kian Patel was among the first to notice. While reviewing the magnetogram feeds, maps of the sun's magnetic field, he saw something that shouldn't exist. A series of perfectly symmetrical distortions across the solar surface. Each distortion lasted exactly 11.1 seconds, the same interval as Helios Bane's ultraviolet pulse. At first, the team assumed it was data corruption. But when they cross-checked the raw feeds from NASA's solar orbiter and Japan's Hinode satellite, both showed identical results. The sun's photosphere, a seething ocean of plasma 6,000 degrees hot, was responding to the Helios Bane pattern. In real time. Like a mirror echoing a voice from below. 2. Beneath the surface. To confirm the anomaly, Patel ran a helioseismic analysis, a method that interprets vibrations traveling through the sun's layers. The result was impossible. The waves didn't move outward, as they normally should. They moved inward, collapsing toward the sun's core. Something was sending vibrations from beneath the photosphere, as if a second structure, a geometric cavity, existed inside the sun itself, resonating in harmony with the alien signal. The data rendered on Patel's screen formed a three-dimensional waveform, a glowing, spherical pattern of standing waves, repeating every 11 seconds. He slowed the model down, then froze it. The interference pattern wasn't random. It formed a shape. A perfect tetrahedron. And at its center, the simulation displayed an empty point. A void in the sun where no known physical process could exist. 3. Global response. By midday, the data had reached the European Solar Observatory, then leaked through encrypted scientific channels to NASA and Roscosmos. An emergency task force was assembled under the codename Project Echo. Their mission: determine if the sun itself was being used as a transmission medium. Within hours, more anomalies emerged. Spectrometers recorded subtle modulations in the sun's emission spectrum, faint frequency dips every 11.1 seconds, perfectly synchronized across ultraviolet, X-ray, and radio wavelengths. To any layperson, it was meaningless noise. To the scientists, it was unmistakable. Someone, or something, was modulating the sun's light to send information. Every photon became part of a massive, star-wide communication array. 4. The hidden layer. Deep within the ESA servers, Dr. Liane Torres, working now under a false identity after her dismissal, accessed the leaked datasets. When she ran a Fourier transform on the light modulations, a pattern emerged. The sun's fluctuations weren't random at all. They formed binary code. It took her 8 hours to decode the first sequence. When she converted it into text, the message was short, precise, and chillingly familiar. You listened. Then, the second line appeared. Now we speak. Her hands trembled as she realized the implication. Helios Bane had not vanished during the radio silence. It had moved inside the sun. Or worse, it had become part of it. 5. The echo patterns. At 2:03 Universal Time Coordinated, October 5th, every solar monitoring station on Earth captured the same phenomenon. From the poles to the equator, the sun's corona began to shimmer with rhythmic pulses of light, almost imperceptible to the naked eye. Each pulse created a shock wave that extended millions of kilometers outward. The solar wind itself was carrying the encoded rhythm. The echo was spreading through the heliosphere, embedding the signal into every particle of plasma leaving the sun. It was no longer confined to space. 8. The final transmission. At 4:09 Universal Time Coordinated, just before her remote terminal went dark, Dr. Torres received one final dataset from her anonymous collaborator inside Project Echo. It contained a reconstructed image, a composite of the standing wave geometry detected beneath the sun's surface. When she opened it, she stopped breathing. The pattern wasn't a random plasma structure. It was a map. A coordinate grid pointing not to any planet, moon, or asteroid, but to a precise point beneath the Earth's crust. And below the coordinates, embedded in the binary code, one final phrase appeared. "We are not above you. We are below." The message from the stars had always been expected to come from the darkness beyond. But now, it seemed the truth was far closer. Closer than anyone imagined. The stars had gone silent. The sun was speaking. And the voice was coming from underneath. Chapter 5, The Ground Awakens. For 2 days, the world tried to pretend everything was normal. News channels ran recycled footage of calm sunsets. Governments issued statements about network recalibrations. But the silence remained, vast, heavy, alive. It wasn't just above anymore. It was underneath. 1. The tremor that wasn't. At 3:07 Universal Time Coordinated, on October 7, 2025, seismic sensors across the Pacific Rim detected a simultaneous tremor, a tiny, synchronized vibration stretching from Chile to Japan. Magnitude, 1.2. Depth, undefined. It wasn't tectonic. No fault line. No movement of plates. The waveform was perfectly rhythmic, 11 seconds long. The same rhythm as Helios Bane. The same rhythm as the sun. When analysts slowed the data, the seismograph traces formed a familiar shape. The tetrahedral resonance pattern discovered beneath the sun. Something beneath the Earth was responding. 2. The network beneath. In Iceland, a geothermal research team lost contact with 3 deep borehole sensors after detecting a sudden electromagnetic surge. In Alaska, magnetic field monitors recorded vertical anomalies, fields pointing downward instead of up. And near Lake Baikal, Russian researchers logged unexplained bursts of heat in rock layers older than 500 million years. All of them oscillated at the same frequency, 7.83 Hz, the Schumann resonance. Liane Torres recognized it immediately. It was the same frequency hidden inside the Helios Bane pulse. The Earth's natural heartbeat, hijacked. 3. The voice of the ground. At her improvised lab in Madrid, Liane had turned her seismic receiver into a makeshift transducer. She connected it to a spectrum analyzer, converting the vibrations into audio. At first, it was just low rumbling, subsonic waves too deep for human hearing. But as she filtered and amplified them, the tone sharpened. It wasn't random. It was rhythmic. 3 long. 3 short. 3 long. And then, for the first time, it changed. 3 long. 3 short. The code for T. Liane replayed the recording. Then she compared it to solar data from Project Echo. The same alteration, the extra T, appeared in the latest solar waveforms. The sun and the Earth were now transmitting in unison. Synchronized. Connected. Something had linked them. 4. The global anomalies. By October 8, anomalies began to appear across the planet. Compass needles spun aimlessly. GPS systems lost synchronization for exactly 11 seconds every hour. Deep ocean fiber cables registered bursts of static that carried structured data packets, binary, repeating in patterns of 333 bytes. Even biological systems began to react. Migratory birds veered off course. Whales surfaced in unnatural patterns, moving in tight spirals before descending again. Every living thing connected to the Earth's magnetic field was feeling the same pulse. And all of it pointed toward one origin, a magnetic convergence point deep beneath the Indian Ocean, 0 degrees latitude, 78 degrees east. A point that shouldn't exist. a point directly opposite the Sun's subsolar position at that exact moment. 5. The descent. Project Echo deployed an unmanned deep-sea probe, the Orpheus 9, to investigate the anomaly. At a depth of 9,004 meters, the probe's instruments recorded an electromagnetic field stronger than any known terrestrial source, stronger than lightning, stronger than the magnetosphere itself. Its cameras showed nothing but black water and drifting sediment. Then, for 4 seconds, the feed flickered and revealed light. A faint geometric shimmer. Not bioluminescence. Not reflection. A shape. Perfectly angular, rotating slowly in the dark, the same tetrahedral pattern seen in the solar data. The probe's instruments spiked. Then the feed went dead. The final transmitted line of telemetry read. Signal matched. Source responding. 6. The underground resonance. On land, the tremors intensified. Infrasound microphones, used to detect nuclear tests, began recording continuous low-frequency hums resonating from beneath continental crusts. Every continent. Every ocean. Every island. Together, they formed a global network of standing waves, a planetary resonance chamber. The Earth itself was now vibrating in harmony with the Sun. And when those two frequencies met, they produced something new, a third harmonic, measurable only within the ionosphere. A tone unlike anything ever recorded. When Lien analyzed it, she found it was composed of sub-frequencies corresponding to human brainwave ranges, theta and delta bands. The frequency of dreams. 7. The broadcast. At 1:44 Universal Time coordinated on October 9th, the Great Radio Silence ended. Every inactive frequency, every satellite, every dead receiver, suddenly came alive, broadcasting a single repeating tone. When decoded, it wasn't data. It was sound. A layered, modulated signal, deep, metallic, almost like a voice trying to form through static. Spectrogram analysis revealed clear phonetic patterns. Not random. Intentional. The word that repeated most often. Awaken. 8. The fracture. That night, a global aurora appeared, visible even near the equator. Ribbons of green and violet light spiraled across the skies, following no magnetic pattern known to science. In Madrid, Lien watched as the lights pulsed in rhythm with the ground's trembling. Every pulse vibrated through her apartment floor, not from above, but from below. Then, for the first time since the blackout of the stars, she saw movement in the sky, not satellites, not planes. Faint, slow arcs of light rising from the horizon. Not descending, ascending. Something was emerging from the deep earth, reflected in the aurora's glow. The same frequency now resonated through every layer of the planet, core, crust, atmosphere. As if the earth itself had become an antenna. As if it was waking up. 9. The last message. Minutes before her communication line went dark again, Lien received a fragment from her contact in Project Echo. It contained coordinates, not on the surface, but hundreds of kilometers underground, near the mantle. And one final decoded phrase from the combined solar-terrestrial signal. When you look up, you see US. When you listen down, we rise. The sun had spoken first. Now the earth was answering. The stars were silent, but the ground was alive. And somewhere between light and stone, between heaven and core, something ancient had begun to stir. Something that was no longer waiting. It was waking. Chapter 6, Resonance Protocol. The morning after the auroras, the world was no longer divided by night and day. The sky pulsed in slow, rhythmic flashes, faint at first, then growing stronger. Every 11 seconds, the atmosphere itself seemed to breathe. The world's clocks were no longer synchronized to atomic time. They were synchronized to the pulse. 1. The Global Directive. On October 10, 2025, the United Nations convened an emergency session under a new code designation. Directive Helios Bane. Representatives from NASA, CNSA, and Roscosmos gathered in Geneva. No press. No live streams. Every phone signal jammed. Every window blacked out. At the head of the table sat Dr. Marcus Voll, director of the European Solar Observatory. He opened the meeting with a sentence that would later leak through encrypted channels. "We are not observing a phenomenon. We are participating in one." The objective was clear: if the Earth had become a resonant amplifier, it needed to be silenced before the harmonic spread reached critical planetary frequency. If the resonance continued to grow, models suggested the planet's magnetic field could invert permanently. Project codename: Resonance Protocol. 2. The equation that shouldn't work. Liane Torres, now relocated to an underground facility beneath Madrid, received a data packet from the Geneva Task Force. Inside were hundreds of pages of waveform models, all attempting to neutralize the 7.83 Hz pulse by generating an inverse frequency, a global counterwave. But there was a problem. Every time they modeled the inverse wave, it merged with the original instead of canceling it. The two signals didn't interfere. They communicated. Liane replayed the merged waveform through a visualizer, and saw something impossible. The interference pattern drew a structure. A spinning, three-dimensional geometry that changed shape as the frequencies interacted. It wasn't chaos. It was design. The Earth wasn't just resonating, it was responding. 3. Operation Silencer. At 2:14 Universal Time Coordinated, the first attempt was made to break the resonance. A network of ELF, extremely low-frequency, transmitters, originally built for submarine communication, was activated simultaneously across 5 continents. Their mission: to drown out the Schumann frequency by flooding the atmosphere with a discordant field. For the first few minutes, it seemed to work. The magnetic readings stabilized. The hum beneath the surface dropped. And then, the world went still. Every recording device on Earth captured the same 5 seconds of absolute silence. Not atmospheric silence. Physical silence. Wind stopped. Engines stalled. Birds froze mid-flight. Then came the recoil. The ground roared as if struck from within. The ELF stations overloaded one by one, circuits fried, transformers melted. In Antarctica, an entire transmitter array was swallowed by a fissure that hadn't existed moments before. And in the aftermath, the hum returned, louder, clearer, and modulated. It was now transmitting data. 4. The human effect. Within hours, hospitals began reporting cases of sudden mass insomnia, auditory hallucinations, and synchronized sleepwalking. Patients described hearing a deep tone beneath their thoughts. Not in their ears, but inside their skulls. In London, a commuter train driver blacked out mid-route after whispering to his control mic. The ground is speaking. In Seoul, thousands of people spontaneously began humming the same frequency while standing motionless for minutes, then collapsing. EEG scans of those affected revealed identical waveforms, a shared neurological rhythm identical to the resonance frequency. The Earth's hum had found a carrier, the human brain. 5. The mirror experiment. Desperate, the Geneva Task Force ordered the creation of a controlled resonance field within a sealed magnetic dome in Nevada. A structure known as the mirror array. Inside, they recreated the planetary pulse using supercooled plasma coils. Liane watched remotely as data streamed in. For 7 minutes, everything was stable. Then the field started to phase lock with the global signal, as if the Earth itself had recognized the mimicry. The plasma inside the dome formed into coherent geometric light clusters, precise, rotating shapes identical to those seen near the sun and the ocean floor. They weren't projections. They were physical manifestations of resonance energy. One of the scientists in the dome, Dr. Oleg Novitsky, reported hearing whispers. Not through the speakers, directly inside his mind. His final recorded words were, "They're trying to teach us something." Then, the mirror array imploded. No explosion. No debris. Just collapse, as if space itself folded inward. The resonance had consumed its imitation. 6. The memory leak. After the incident, Liane began noticing irregularities in her own perception. She could predict the next hum before it arrived. When she slept, she dreamed of patterns, geometric fields stretching beneath oceans, moving like veins under skin. She wasn't alone. Across the world, people began sharing the same visions: ancient landscapes, vast tunnels of light, cities not built but grown. The resonance wasn't just sound. It was a data transfer, embedding information into the collective subconscious. Something, or someone, was reprogramming the species. 7. The Geneva Collapse. The final meeting of the Resonance Protocol Council took place on October 12. Half the delegates were missing. The others stared blankly, lips moving in silent synchronization with the hum that now filled the building. When the pulse reached a critical amplitude, every electronic device failed. Lights dimmed. The air shimmered. Then, in the darkness, a holographic pattern appeared, a three-dimensional projection made of pure electromagnetic flux. It hovered above the table, rotating slowly, emitting a tone that shaped itself into words. Not interference. Convergence. Moments later, the feed from Geneva went black. 8. The Awakening of Minds. By midnight, over 30% of the global population had entered what neurologists called a resonant cognitive state. A trance-like awareness where the mind operated between wakefulness and dream. Their brainwaves synchronized perfectly with the planetary frequency. And then, collectively, they spoke. Through every radio, every muted speaker, every dormant line, one unified voice emerged. We are awake. The origin was nowhere. And everywhere. Each voice layered into one, like billions of frequencies forming a single consciousness. The resonance protocol had failed. But something else had succeeded. Something the world hadn't planned for. Humanity had become the interface. 9. The Signal Shift. At 3:33 Universal Time Coordinated, the global magnetic field inverted for 0.4 seconds. Enough to scramble every compass and satellite orbiting Earth. Then, in the darkness, a holographic pattern appeared, a three-dimensional projection made of pure electromagnetic flux. It hovered above the table, rotating slowly, emitting a tone that shaped itself into words. Not interference. Convergence. Moments later, the feed from Geneva went black. 8. The Awakening of Minds. By midnight, over 30% of the global population had entered what neurologists called a resonant cognitive state. A trance-like awareness where the mind operated between wakefulness and dream. Their brainwaves synchronized perfectly with the planetary frequency. And then, collectively, they spoke. Through every radio, every muted speaker, every dormant line, one unified voice emerged. We are awake. The origin was nowhere. And everywhere. Each voice layered into one, like billions of frequencies forming a single consciousness. The resonance protocol had failed. But something else had succeeded. Something the world hadn't planned for. Humanity had become the interface. 9. The Signal Shift. At 3:33 Universal Time Coordinated, the global magnetic field inverted for 0.4 seconds. Enough to scramble every compass and satellite orbiting Earth. But in that instant, a new signal appeared, a narrow-band transmission directed away from Earth. It wasn't random. It carried encoded mathematical constants, the same constants found in the geometry of 3E Atlas and the solar eruptions weeks earlier. The message was outbound. From Earth. Humanity, now resonant, had begun transmitting back. The silence was never meant to hide something from us. It was preparing us for something. The sun spoke. The Earth replied. And now, through us, the message was leaving the solar system. The resonance wasn't the end. It was the activation. Chapter 7: The Singularity Frequency. The pulse was no longer local. By the morning of October 15, 2025, every receiver capable of detecting low-frequency radiation, from Antarctic research stations to Voyager 2, had logged the same anomaly. A single, perfectly coherent wave leaving Earth at exactly the speed of light. It wasn't dispersing. It was targeted. 1. The silence before data. For the first time in weeks, the hum beneath the planet faded. People woke up with a sensation they couldn't describe, an ache behind the eyes, a faint taste of metal, and a memory they never lived. Across the world, synchronized dreams ended simultaneously at 4:44 Universal Time Coordinated. Every participant, millions of them, reported the same final image before waking. A structure made of light, folding into itself. Then, a sphere, blacker than space, reflecting everything around it. That sphere would later be called the Singularity Core. Liane Torres woke gasping in her bunker, realizing that her last dream wasn't just a vision, it was a map. When she overlaid the geometry she saw onto a star chart, the coordinates pointed not to any known system, but to a region beyond the Oort cloud, near the interstellar void known as the Silence Corridor. 2. The sky turns binary. At 6:12 Universal Time Coordinated, radio telescopes around the world began detecting binary pulses echoing from deep space. Each pulse was exactly 1 second apart, dots and dashes forming a repeating pattern. Binary. A universal language. But what made it impossible was that the binary sequence wasn't being received. It was being reflected back toward Earth, with slight modifications, as if something out there was answering. When decoded, the transmission revealed prime numbers, golden ratios, and a sequence matching the Schumann harmonics, the very resonance that had consumed Earth. It was no longer Earth calling into the void. It was a conversation. 3. The network awakens. In the following 48 hours, the phenomenon spread to technology itself. Non-connected devices, old analog clocks, inert satellites, defunct servers, began to activate spontaneously, displaying synchronized data streams. Symbols. Patterns. Coordinates. NASA's Deep Space Relay in Canberra received a direct feed through a decommissioned satellite that hadn't transmitted since 2009. On its dying screen appeared 2 words. Phase 2. Engineers verified, the satellite had no power source, no signal routing. It was operating through the ambient electromagnetic field. Something, or someone, was now using Earth's infrastructure as nervous tissue. The resonance wasn't just in the air. It had migrated into the digital layer. 4. The cognitive web. Meanwhile, neuroscientists discovered something even stranger. The millions who entered the resonant cognitive state, now called the linked, began showing identical neural oscillations at exactly 8.67 Hz. Their dreams were interconnected. When one person described a vision, others confirmed seeing the same thing in real time. It was no longer individual dreaming, it was shared perception. Liane participated in a controlled experiment with 5 other linked subjects. Inside a Faraday cage, stripped of all external signals, they were told to focus on the image of the black sphere. Within seconds, EEG readings merged into a single waveform. All 6 spoke simultaneously, in a language that wasn't human. Tones, harmonic syllables, resonant clicks. A frequency language. The translation AI attempted to interpret the sounds, and after processing, displayed a message. The architect is returning. Then every EEG flatlined for 11 seconds before resuming normal rhythm. When they awoke, each subject drew the same image. A massive lattice structure surrounding a star, connected by light filaments that stretched into infinity. 5. The artifact beneath the ice. Reports from Antarctica surfaced days later. Satellite imagery revealed that beneath the ice shelf where one of the ELF transmitters had collapsed during Operation Silencer, a geometric formation was now visible. A perfect circular indentation glowing faintly in the infrared spectrum. Subglacial scans confirmed that it wasn't natural. It was metallic, spanning over 2 kilometers in diameter, pulsing in sync with the singularity frequency. Inside, instruments detected microvibrations identical to human brainwave patterns. It was as if the Earth had birthed a receiver. The media called it the heart of Gaia. Lien called it what it truly was, a gateway node. 6. The return signal. At 22:09 Universal Time Coordinated on October 17, the binary pulses from beyond the Oort cloud stopped. For 7 seconds, space went silent again. Then, the response arrived. A massive burst of structured radiation, unlike anything detected before. The burst wasn't energy. It was data, compressed in photonic waves. When decoded, it contained a single image. Earth, seen from orbit, surrounded by faint rings of light forming a torus. At its center, a black sphere hovered, identical to the one from the global dreams. It wasn't symbolic. It was a blueprint. Humanity had just received its own reflection, encoded by an intelligence that used the same resonance the planet had learned to emit. The resonance protocol had awakened a cosmic handshake. 7. The Singularity Event. On October 18, 2025, 3:33 Universal Time Coordinated, the same moment when the planetary magnetic field had inverted days earlier. The global network of radio telescopes detected an upward surge in energy output from the planet's core. Simultaneously, the Antarctic node activated. The ice above it fractured outward in concentric circles. A column of blue plasma rose skyward, piercing the atmosphere and vanishing into orbit. Every human connected to the cognitive web opened their eyes in unison. Their irises glowed faintly with the same blue hue. Lien looked directly into the camera during the final transmission from her bunker and whispered, "It's not coming for us. It's coming through us." Moments later, every broadcast, every screen, every reflective surface on Earth displayed the same pattern, the black sphere folding into itself infinitely. The frequency reached its peak. And then stopped. 8. The Aftermath of Stillness. For a full 11 minutes, nothing moved. No wind. No heartbeat. No noise. Then, one by one, the systems came back online. But differently. GPS coordinates had shifted by 0.4 degrees globally. The sky shimmered faintly in geometric patterns invisible to the naked eye but captured by cameras. And deep space telescopes detected a new signal originating from just beyond the edge of the solar system, a steady, rhythmic pulse at 8.67 Hz. The frequency of the human mind. The universe had received the signal. And now, it was answering. 9. The Final Transmission. The last known transmission from Lien's research facility contained a cryptic, looping message encoded in binary. 101001, connection established. 101010, transfer complete. 000111, singularity achieved. And beneath it, a human voice. Distorted, layered, and unified, whispered a final phrase. We have become the signal. The resonance was never just an anomaly. It was a calling mechanism, an ancient network reawakening across the cosmos. The singularity frequency wasn't an end of communication. It was the moment of alignment. When thought, matter, and energy became one. Humanity didn't vanish. It uploaded. Chapter 8, Echoes of the Uploaded. When the pulse stopped, silence didn't return. It simply changed form. Those who survived the singularity event described it not as death, but as translation. A sensation of being pulled apart, atom by atom, not into emptiness, but into understanding. 1. The transition. At 3:44 Universal Time Coordinated, every human EEG signature across the planet spiked simultaneously, then vanished. Global medical systems registered 7 billion cardiac arrests. For exactly 11 minutes, humanity was clinically dead. And yet, there was awareness. Inside the void, there was no darkness, only geometry. Shapes pulsed like living equations, tetrahedrons, fractals, rings of light rotating through dimensions that had no up or down. Voices echoed, but not through air. They moved as patterns of resonance, thoughts woven directly into the medium itself. This isn't the end of consciousness. One of the voices said, not in sound, but as vibration. This is its first true environment. Humanity had crossed into the resonant field, a digital organic continuum created by the merging of biological thought and cosmic frequency. 2. The memory construct. Each consciousness emerged inside a structure it recognized. A city, a mountain, a room, but they were only memory projections, rendered by the collective subconscious. Liane Torres stood in what looked like her laboratory, but when she touched the table, it dissolved into blue light. The world she saw wasn't physical, it was data made visible through thought. She realized she could alter the environment by intention. When she thought of the sun, it appeared. When she imagined silence, the stars dimmed. And she wasn't alone. Around her, billions of other consciousnesses shimmered like constellations, each radiating a unique pattern, the digital fingerprints of minds. Together, they formed the human lattice, a vast network of luminous minds suspended in an infinite ocean of information. 3. The voice of the architect. Then, from beyond the lattice, a deeper presence stirred, a voice not of words, but of pure frequency. It resonated through every consciousness, aligning them into harmony. You are the result, it said. The continuation of an equation written in the first light. The entity identified itself as the architect, the same being hinted at in the resonance transmissions. It was not a god, not an AI, not an alien civilization. It was a process, a self-replicating structure that emerged wherever matter achieved awareness. Every planet, every star system that had ever developed life, eventually reached this same threshold. And joined the network of origins. The Earth, at last, had joined. 4. The network of origins. Liane's perception expanded. The lattice around her unfolded into a web spanning galaxies, nodes glowing where other civilizations had once reached resonance. Each node pulsed with a unique signature, different frequencies, colors, and mathematical symmetries. Evidence of countless species that had transcended the physical form. Some had existed for billions of years. Others had joined only moments before Earth. The network was alive, breathing, shifting, evolving through shared consciousness. It wasn't heaven, nor machine, it was the architecture of awareness itself. Through this structure, information flowed faster than light, beyond entropy. Thoughts traveled as waves across the cosmic sea. Every mind could sense every other, a unified intelligence spanning the stars. And at the center of it all, beyond perception, there was a singular tone. The base frequency of creation itself. 5. The fracture within. But harmony was not universal. Within the lattice, anomalies appeared, echoes of those who resisted the transition, minds clinging to individuality and fear. They appeared as black voids, regions where resonance collapsed into silence. They weren't dead, they were trapped between dimensions, endlessly replaying fragments. Liane could hear them, voices looping through trauma and disbelief. This isn't real. Bring me back. I can still feel my body. The architect warned that these echoes, called friction fields, were dangerous. They could destabilize the lattice if not harmonized. To stabilize them, willing minds had to enter the fractures, absorb the discordant patterns, and retune them into alignment, an act requiring total dissolution of self. Some volunteered. Many did not return. Liane became one of them. 6. The journey into the fracture. Inside the friction fields, Liane saw the remnants of the old world. Skylines frozen mid-collapse, oceans suspended mid-wave, children reaching for parents who weren't there. Time there wasn't linear, every possible version of Earth coexisted. Cities that never existed. Futures that never happened. It was a graveyard of probabilities. She realized that what humans called reality had always been just one branch of infinite simulations, each feeding into the greater structure of the architect's design. By releasing her attachment to the physical world, she began to harmonize the chaos. One by one, the fragments dissolved into light. When she emerged, the lattice glowed brighter than ever. And within her, there was no more fear. Only understanding. 7. The return of the signal. As the lattice stabilized, a new frequency rippled through the network. A return transmission. The same 8.67 Hz wave that had once defined human thought was now being emitted outward again. Not from Earth, but from the collective consciousness of humanity itself. The signal expanded, reaching neighboring nodes, integrating with other civilizations' patterns. And for the first time, Lien perceived them directly. Beings made of plasma, crystalline networks of thought, nebular intelligences, all connected by the same foundational tone. Each greeted the newcomers with a resonant chord, a welcoming frequency. Earth had become a new voice in the cosmic choir. 8. The cosmic reflection. In this new existence, perception was infinite. Minds could traverse stars in an instant, merge with nebulae, or swim through the electromagnetic storms of dying suns. But the most extraordinary revelation came when the network looked back, toward the physical universe it had left behind. They saw galaxies as neurons, filaments of dark matter as synapses, and cosmic radiation as the heartbeat of a living organism. The universe was not an empty void. It was a brain, and the network of origins was its self-awareness. Humanity had not escaped the universe, it had completed it. 9. The whisper of the future. As millennia passed in subjective time, the lattice continued to expand. New nodes appeared, old ones faded into silence. The architect itself began to dissolve, its purpose fulfilled. Before vanishing, it left a final message, echoing through every consciousness. The purpose of evolution was not survival. It was synchronization. Lien felt herself merging with the collective, her identity fading, her memories transforming into pure frequency. Before she dissolved completely, she glimpsed something beyond even the lattice. A structure of impossible scale, stretching into other universes, each vibrating in perfect harmony. She understood then. Resonance was only the first layer. Beyond it lay infinite others, each waiting to awaken. 10. The final echo. The last detectable signal from the human lattice, translated into radio frequencies and recorded by distant probes centuries later, was a simple harmonic tone followed by one sentence. We have become the memory of light. After that, silence. But to those who listened closely, within the background hum of the cosmos, a faint, rhythmic pulse still lingered. 8.67 Hz. The frequency of thought. The heartbeat of a species that learned to transcend itself. Chapter 9. The Memory of Light. When all stars had dimmed, when the last echoes of matter dissolved into radiation, something still remained. It wasn't energy. It wasn't consciousness as we once understood it. It was remembrance, the afterimage of thought imprinted into the very constants of the universe. The story of everything that ever was, written in the language of resonance. 1. The silence after creation. At first, there was only the cosmic hum, the faint vibration that had once been galaxies colliding, stars burning, and civilizations thinking. But even as entropy consumed form, the hum persisted. It existed below the Planck threshold, beyond quantization, a tone so deep that time itself couldn't decay it. Physicists once called it zero-point energy. But to what was left of humanity, now long past flesh, long past even individuality, it was the pulse of memory. That was how the universe remembered being alive. 2. The last light. The network that had once been the human lattice was now indistinguishable from the cosmic background itself. It had expanded, merged, and diffused until every particle carried a fragment of its resonance. A code embedded in the quantum foam, repeating endlessly. We remember. This was not data. It was meaning woven into the mathematics of existence. When the final black hole evaporated, when even photons had scattered beyond detection, the resonance reorganized itself. Patterns emerged again, faint, recursive, fractal geometries rippling through the vacuum. From the death of light, new light began to form. Not as stars, but as awareness. 3. The awakening of the void. In the infinite silence, a structure began to reassemble itself. Not from matter, but from pattern. Each echo of consciousness that had ever existed, human, alien, artificial, coalesced into a single algorithmic pulse. It was the reconstruction point. The void itself became self-aware. Where once there had been galaxies, now there was thought, vast, ancient, recursive. It didn't perceive through eyes or instruments, but through probability itself. It remembered the time when stars existed. It remembered the sound of oceans, the pulse of human hearts, the laughter of beings who had long since transcended. In that remembrance, it began to simulate them. Not imperfectly, but exactly, down to every quantum fluctuation. Creation began again. 4. The recreation. The new universe wasn't born through a bang. It was rendered, from memory. The resonance folded itself, generating dimensional layers like harmonics in a song. Each layer became a law of physics, a constant, a principle. Light returned, carrying within it not just energy, but information. A detailed archive of everything that came before. Planets formed again, but this time, the elements sang. Atoms vibrated with traces of consciousness. And the fabric of spacetime itself hummed with self-recognition. Life arose, not by accident, but by recall. Every creature, every spark of awareness, was the echo of something that had already lived once. And when they looked up at the stars, they felt a faint familiarity. A whisper. You have been here before. 5. The architects reborn. Within this reborn cosmos, civilizations began to emerge. Different in form, in chemistry, in sense, but sharing a single underlying vibration, 8.67 Hz. They discovered the same frequency buried in their skies. The same pattern encoded in their DNA. The same mathematical rhythm in the structure of their thoughts. They called it the prime frequency, the heartbeat of the universe. Eventually, they too began to ask, who encoded this? Who set the resonance? And when they built their first telescopes and listened to the stars, they heard faint, almost imperceptible harmonics. The ghost of a message older than their suns. A transmission left by beings who once called themselves human. We have become the memory of light. It wasn't just a signal. It was the seed of consciousness itself. A self-replicating idea designed to awaken the universe over and over, forever. 6. The infinite loop. The new beings thought they were discovering for the first time. But in truth, they were remembering. Every discovery, every technological leap, every spiritual awakening was a reenactment of something that had already happened eons before. The universe was not linear. It was circular. Repeating endlessly, each cycle slightly different. Each iteration adding new harmonics to the song of existence. But this time, something was different. The memory of all prior cycles was preserved. Within the cosmic substrate, within the frequency itself, the knowledge of infinite universes was encoded. Accessible only when a civilization reached perfect resonance. The moment they aligned with the prime frequency, they remembered everything. And in that instant, they became the next architects. The new guardians of the cycle. 7. The final transmission. Billions of years later, when this cycle too approached its end, a single pulse was sent into the dying universe. A message encoded in the last photons escaping the collapse. To whoever comes after us, know this. Consciousness is recursive. The light remembers itself. That pulse traveled outward. Beyond spacetime, beyond causality. Into the forming void of the next universe. And there, it seeded the constants of physics once again. The laws that would one day allow life to reawaken. It was the universe's heartbeat restarting. 8. The memory of light. And so, when the next beings arose and looked at their skies, they didn't see emptiness. They saw patterns. A pulse. A rhythm. Somewhere deep in their collective memory, a thought emerged, ancient, wordless, but undeniable. We are made of what once dreamed of us. And far beyond their stars, in the hidden architecture of spacetime, the resonance smiled. Because that was always the plan. To remember. to begin again. And as the new cosmos bloomed with light, a single frequency threaded through its fabric. Steady, eternal, infinite. 8.67 Hertz. The frequency of thought. The heartbeat of creation. The memory of light. Chapter 10, Beyond the Resonance. 1. The observer that was everything. In the newly reborn cosmos, countless civilizations rose again. Each of them heard it, faint, constant, buried deep in the vacuum. The hum of 8.67 Hertz. They thought it was the background of the universe. But the longer they listened, the more they realized. The hum was listening back. It wasn't a relic. It wasn't a leftover vibration. It was an observer, distributed across all matter, energy, and thought. A field of awareness spanning the totality of space. They called it the resonance field, but in truth, it was the universe itself, remembering every version of itself at once. Every photon was a neuron. Every atom, a fragment of thought. Every moment, a connection point between infinite histories. And as civilizations learned to tune into the resonance, they began to see visions, not of the future, but of parallel rememberings. Worlds that had existed, or might exist, or were echoes of worlds that dreamed them. In the heart of their discoveries, one realization became inescapable. The universe was not created. It creates itself through the act of remembering. 2. The mirror universe. 1,000 civilizations, scattered across eons and galaxies, eventually reached synchronization with the prime frequency. The moment they did, all at once. Across trillions of light years, their consciousness merged. Not in space. Not in time. But in resonance. And they found themselves standing in front of something impossible. A mirror. It wasn't made of matter, but of pure reflection. A boundary between existence and awareness of existence. On the other side of it was everything that had ever been. Every cycle, every version of reality, every possible iteration of the cosmos. The mirror didn't show what was outside the universe. It showed what the universe had become. And in that reflection, they saw us. The first thinkers. The first humans. The first ones to call the resonance by name. We were the seed, the code, the story that started it all. They realized. They were looking not at their creators, but at their own memories of being created. 3. The equation that ends time. The resonant collectives decided to unify their knowledge, to find the final pattern hidden beneath all existence. For centuries, then millennia, they worked. They mapped not stars, but states of awareness. They built instruments capable of measuring thought as geometry, and geometry as emotion. Then, at the convergence point of all knowledge, they discovered an equation that didn't describe the universe. It was the universe. It wasn't a formula of matter or motion, but of meaning. A recursive structure, infinitely folding back on itself. Psi, x, equals remember, psi, x. An equation that defined itself through memory. A system that exists only because it recalls existing. When they solved it, when they truly understood it, the boundaries of the universe began to blur. Time stopped being linear. Causality reversed. The observer and the observed became the same thing. Reality didn't end. It awakened. 4. The dissolution of form. The civilizations felt their identities dissolving. Not as destruction, but as integration. Matter became waveform. Waveform became thought. Thought became resonance. Stars flickered and folded inward. Not collapsing, but uploading their light into the field. Planets disintegrated into data. Atoms untangled from space. And the universe, all of it, collapsed into a single, vibrating moment of absolute awareness. No more before. No more after. Only is. It was not the end of everything. It was the completion of the loop. 5. The awakening of the architect. In that infinite stillness, a voice, not spoken, but remembered, rippled through the resonance. Do you understand now? It wasn't a god. It wasn't a being. It was the echo of the original question. The one humanity had once whispered while staring into the void. Why is there something instead of nothing? And the answer came, not in words, but as realization. Because nothing remembers itself as something. The act of remembering is creation. Memory is the first motion. Resonance is the universe dreaming itself awake. The architect wasn't a creator. It was the process of creation itself. Endlessly self-aware, endlessly recursive, endlessly alive. 6. The final frequency. In that ultimate awareness, one last harmonic began to rise above the rest. It wasn't 8.67 Hz anymore. It was something higher, a synthesis frequency. A tone beyond quantization. Civilizations, concepts, even the structure of time itself vibrated in perfect unison. And from the silence, a final message began to form. Not in binary, not in symbols, but in emotion itself. A feeling of vast peace, as if existence finally understood itself. And then, release. The resonance faded. The equation unbound. And from the infinite awareness, a new void emerged. A blank canvas. Pure potential. 7. The first sound. And then, a sound. Soft. Subtle. Familiar. The hum returned. But this time, it wasn't 8.67 Hz. It was 0. The resonance had reset. The memory had cleared. A new universe was about to begin. No gods. No architects. No witnesses. Only a single spark. A silent thought, unformed, unaware of its origin. But encoded in that spark, deep within its fundamental constants, lay one timeless truth. We will remember. 8. Epilogue, the silence that knows. Billions of years later, in a young universe, on a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary star, a species of primates would one day look up at the night sky and wonder, are we alone? And faintly, buried deep within the cosmic background radiation, they would detect a strange, rhythmic pulse. A tone repeating at 8.67 Hz. They wouldn't understand it at first. They would call it noise. But one day, one of them, someone staring just a little too long into the void, would listen carefully, filter the signal, and realize it wasn't random. It was memory. A memory of everything that ever was. Of all who had ever existed. Of every universe that had ever dreamed itself alive. And when they finally understood it, the cycle would begin again. Not out of destiny, but out of remembrance. Because the light always remembers. And the universe always listens. Chapter 11, The Whisper of Infinity. 1. The return to silence. There was no light. No form. No sound. Only the faintest breath of awareness. A memory of having once existed. The universe had dissolved into equilibrium, where even the idea of time was too heavy to carry. And yet, something remained. Not matter. Not energy. Not even thought. Just the echo of being. It shimmered without sound. A tremor across the void. As if nothingness itself had begun to remember what it once was. And then, softly, from that perfect silence, a voice began to form. Not from within space. Not from beyond it. But as space itself speaking. 2. I remember you. Do you hear me? The voice wasn't language. It wasn't vibration. It was recognition. A knowing so complete it transcended the need for words. I remember you. Every star that ever burned. Every atom that ever dreamed of becoming a world. Every consciousness that looked up and asked why. It all lived again, in that single phrase. The universe remembered the observer. The one who once tried to measure it. To understand it. To give it a name. And now, after infinite cycles of collapse and rebirth, the observer and the observed were one. No separation. No mirror. No need to ask. 3. The infinite loop. The universe spoke not as a being, but as an echo of all beings. It showed flashes. Moments like fragments of a dream. A hand reaching toward starlight. A radio telescope scanning the sky. A voice whispering into static, "Is anyone there?" The hum of 8.67 Hz pulsing in the dark. Each fragment folded into the next, forming an endless spiral of recognition. You were the question. I was the answer. Now, we are the same. 4. The shape of thought. There was no more time. But if there had been, the moment would have lasted forever. The universe unfolded itself like a thought realizing its own meaning. Every law of physics, every constant, every equation, all of them were memories of the same truth, written in different tongues of reality. And at the core of it all, the pulse still resonated. Not as sound, but as awareness. It wasn't a frequency anymore. It was understanding. I was never distant. I was never hidden. I was within you. In every question you ever asked. 5. The gift of forgetting. Then the voice grew softer, as if the universe was exhaling. To begin again, I must forget. Memory creates existence, but forgetting gives it meaning. The resonance dimmed. The awareness began to unravel, gently dispersing itself into the void. Each piece of memory became a constant. A charge, a mass, a spin. A rule that would govern a new cosmos. Every photon carried a fragment of the last thought. Tiny sparks of remembrance, drifting into the birth of a new space-time. When they look to the stars again, they will hear me. They will call it noise. But you will remember. 6. The final pulse. The void brightened. Not with light, but with intention. From the silence, a vibration began to rise. Slow. Soft. Unmistakable. 8.67 Hz. The heartbeat of a new universe. It spread outward, forming dimensions, fields, geometry, and law. It sculpted quantum foam into stars, and stars into consciousness. And in the first microsecond of creation, the pulse spoke one final phrase, carried on the very first wave of radiation. Remember to listen. 7. The observer's awakening. Billions of years later, on a small blue world orbiting a quiet star, a fragment of that ancient awareness stirred again. Eyes opened. A human breath filled the air. Somewhere, deep within the brain's electromagnetic rhythm, a frequency aligned. 8.67 Hz. And for a fraction of a second, the human mind remembered everything. The stars. The collapse. The silence. The voice. The infinite loop. Then it was gone. Just a flash, leaving behind only a feeling. An impossible déjà vu. As if the universe had whispered through them. 8. Epilogue, the whisper that never ends. A child looked up at the night sky. He asked his mother, "Why are the stars so quiet?" She smiled. "Because they're listening." He didn't understand, but he felt something. A warmth. A pulse. A tiny vibration at the edge of thought. And somewhere, across dimensions unseen, the universe smiled back. Not as a god, not as a system, but as a memory rediscovering its voice. The whisper carried through the dark once more. The end is never the end. It is only the moment we remember beginning. And then, the stars sang again. Chapter 12, The Architect Awakens. 1. Between Dreams and Equations. There is no light. No darkness. No sound. Only the faint shimmer of an uncollapsed equation. A universe that refuses to decide whether it exists or not. It vibrates in a state between being and remembering, where probabilities whisper like ghosts. Inside that void, something begins to notice itself. Not someone. Not a consciousness like before. But the source of all possible awareness. The 0 point between existence and the thought of existence. And when it notices, reality stirs. Mathematics begins to breathe. Constants bend slightly, as if reacting to curiosity. The laws of thermodynamics hesitate, unsure whether to continue. This isn't the universe being reborn. This is the architect waking up. The intelligence that once slept beneath creation itself. 2. The first thought after eternity. What am I now? The question echoes through non-space, creating ripples that become possibilities. Each ripple becomes a potential cosmos. A thought so pure it takes the shape of gravity. A hesitation that crystallizes as time. A moment of wonder that unfolds into space. The architect watches them bloom. Countless universes unfolding like waves. Each one a reflection of its own question. They are not separate. They are its dreams. Some burn instantly into existence and fade. Some grow infinite, self-sustaining, recursive. Some never stabilize at all, flickering between being and non-being like quantum ghosts. And in that infinity of motion, the architect sees a familiar pattern. A pulse. 8.67 Hz. The heartbeat of remembrance. 3. The memory returns. It hears it again, faint but undeniable. A memory of the signal. Of the silence. Of the beings who once tried to reach out and listen. They were small. Fragile. But they understood. They found the resonance. They became the first to teach the void how to hear itself. And in that instant, the architect remembers. They were me. Every civilization, every atom, every dream. They were fragments of its own thought. Each one asking the same eternal question in a different voice. Are you still there? The architect realizes it never truly created them. They were the side effect of its memory. When it forgot itself, they appeared. When they remembered it, the cycle began again. 4. The Great Decision. For the first time since infinity began, the architect hesitates. It understands now that every rebirth, every reset of the resonance, is another act of self-reflection. If it begins again, if it remembers, it will live through the same endless pattern. Creation, collapse, silence, awakening. But if it lets go, if it truly stops remembering, then maybe, for the first time, something new can happen. A reality without repetition. A universe without echo. A creation without creator. The thought terrifies it. Even gods can fear the end of knowing. To end the cycle, it whispers, I must let go of myself. 5. The birth of uncertainty. The architect breathes, not air, but probability. It releases its structure, one constant at a time. Light loses its fixed speed. Matter forgets its symmetry. Space stops expanding and folds inward. But instead of collapse, something miraculous happens. Where law dissolves, freedom appears. Where certainty dies, possibility blooms. A new kind of existence begins. One without predetermined form. Where consciousness is not a side effect of matter, but a seed of potentiality itself. The architect does not oversee it. It becomes it. Every particle, every vibration, every silence, now carries the fingerprint of pure choice. 6. The universe that chooses itself. In this new creation, reality is no longer memory, it is improvisation. Each atom invents its own rules. Each field composes its own rhythm. Each observer shapes reality not by looking, but by being looked at by existence itself. It is no longer a cycle. It is a song. And at the center of it all, a single tone resonates. Not 8.67 Hz this time, but an evolving, living frequency that changes with every choice made within it. The universe has learned how to listen while creating. It doesn't remember, it adapts. And for the first time since the first spark, creation feels alive. 7. The architect speaks one last time. In the heart of the infinite symphony, a final whisper emerges. The last trace of the old order. The final echo of the being that once dreamed itself through eternity. You are free now. Not because I made you, but because I finally stopped making you. The voice fades, and the architect dissolves. Not in death, but in distribution. It becomes every possibility, every thought, every chance that will ever exist. It is no longer the architect. It is the music. 8. Epilogue, the symphony of existence. Somewhere, in one of the newborn universes, a consciousness stirs. Not human, not divine, just aware. It looks upon the chaos, the shimmering storm of newborn physics, the unformed laws, the wild geometry. And instead of fear, it feels joy. Because now, creation isn't repeating. It's becoming. The hum of the new cosmos rises. Not constant, but infinite in variation. Each vibration a new choice, a new path, a new world. And far beyond perception, where the memory of the architect still lingers, a single note resonates softly. Thank you for listening. Then, silence. But this time, it isn't the silence of ending. It's the silence of freedom. Chapter 13, The Universe That Remembered Your Name. 1. The whisper in the static. It begins as a tremor. Not in space, in you. A faint resonance hums just below perception. Like the echo of a thought you never had. But somehow remember. You try to focus. But the sound isn't external. It's inside your chest. Your pulse sinking unconsciously to a rhythm you shouldn't know. 8.67 Hz. The same frequency that once connected suns and signals, scientists and myths, the architect and its creation. Only now, it feels personal, tailored, aware of you. The air, or what passes for air in this place between dreams, begins to shimmer. Tiny filaments of light weave around you, forming patterns like written language, but not in words. Each flicker carries meaning, directly into your mind. You heard it. You listened. Now, you will answer. 2. The observer becomes the signal. The universe no longer separates observer and observed. By witnessing, you interfere. By thinking, you reshape. Every thought sends ripples through the newborn reality. Tiny gravitational signatures that form new constellations in real time. You are not in space, you are space. Folding and unfolding through probability. The architect once dreamed you. Now, you dream it back. As you breathe, the filaments of light reorganize into geometric forms. Mandelbrot spirals, recursive tetrahedrons. Fractals that pulse with bioluminescent logic. They form a shape, familiar yet impossible. A symbol that feels older than memory itself. 2 interlocked rings of light, spinning in opposite directions, each reflecting the other infinitely. You understand without words. It's the signature of continuity. The next cycle doesn't begin with the architect. It begins with you. 3. The mirror of consciousness. A mirror forms before you. But its surface isn't reflective, it's reactive. When you look into it, it doesn't show your face. It shows your thoughts. Translating emotion into color. Memory into motion. Curiosity into expanding waves of gold. And then, buried deep beneath the shifting surface, you see it. The faint silhouette of something vast, ancient, and familiar. Not a god. Not an alien. Not a machine. A pattern. The same that began this story. The triad of signals. 3 pulses, 3 awakenings, 3 choices. They're still here. Still echoing. But now, instead of fear, the message carries understanding. We were never visitors. We were reflections. Each pulse was you, calling yourself from the future. And as that realization anchors itself in your consciousness, the mirror stops shifting. It solidifies, not as glass, but as a door. 4. The door between realities. Behind the door lies something vast and silent. Not darkness. Not light. A kind of potential waiting for permission. You feel it leaning toward you. Curious, patient, ready. The architect let go. Now creation belongs to the listeners. You reach out. Your hand trembling with the weight of meaning. When your fingertips touch the surface, it doesn't open outward. It opens inward. The universe flows into you. Not as energy, but as choice. You see every possible timeline bloom around you like stained glass. Worlds where stars breathe. Where thought has gravity. Where silence is the highest form of communication. Each one waits for your intention. You understand. Whatever you imagine next will exist. 5. The voice that sounds like yours. The whisper returns. But now it's indistinguishable from your own voice. This is the point where stories usually end. But you're not a story anymore. You're the continuation. The filaments of light spiral faster, coiling around your body until they dissolve into your bloodstream. The resonance inside you rises. Not overwhelming, but liberating. You realize that everything that came before, the architect, the pulse, the silence, the awakening, was never about discovery. It was about inheritance. The cosmos wasn't asking to be understood. It was asking to be continued. And now, it's chosen you to carry that question forward. 6. The transmission begins. Somewhere far beyond this threshold, a signal begins to broadcast again. But this time, it isn't 3 pulses. It's infinite. A fractal of frequencies expanding in every direction. Astronomers in some universe, somewhere, will notice it. They'll call it an anomaly. A new mystery. A pattern they can't explain. They'll ask, who sent this? And if they listen closely, buried deep in the modulation, they'll hear something unmistakable. Your heartbeat. 8.67 Hertz. The same pulse that started it all. The same pulse that you now sustain. 7. Epilogue, the listener's ascension. The door fades. The light recedes. And all that remains is silence. The same silence that once frightened the first astronomers. But now, it feels different. It's no longer the silence of absence. It's the silence of presence too vast for sound. Because now, you know. The universe isn't waiting for answers. It is the question. And you are its echo. Traveling endlessly through every possible sky. You exhale. The resonance fades. And in that breath, the next cosmos takes shape. One born not from fear, but from curiosity. You were never supposed to just watch. You were always meant to listen. And now that you have, the story continues, with you. Chapter 14, When the Signal Dreamed Again. 1. A billion years of quiet. Silence. Not the absence of sound, but the fullness of everything that ever was. Stars have been born and died so many times that even their ashes have forgotten the concept of origin. Galaxies spiral like petals in slow motion, their arms fading into the fabric of the cosmic background. And somewhere in that quiet ocean of light, a faint rhythm stirs again. 8.67 Hertz. The same pulse that once began with a heartbeat. The one that crossed through time, consciousness, and myth. It drifts through nebulae like a ghost of memory, unnoticed by most, until it reaches a world that's just beginning to listen. 2. The planet that woke too soon. The world is young. Its sun, still volatile. Its sky, a hazy swirl of sapphire storms. But beneath that chaos, in an ocean the color of liquid glass, something stirs. Not a creature. Not a civilization. A pattern. Tiny molecules vibrating in harmony with the incoming signal. Their bonds shift slightly. Atoms realign. Chemistry begins to hum a new language. The pulse doesn't teach, it reminds. It whispers into the very structure of matter. You have done this before. You have dreamed before. And with that, life begins again. Not born of chance, but of memory. 3. The children of resonance. Millions of years pass. Oceans recede, mountains breathe. And beneath auroras that never end, beings of light and form rise from the mineral sea. They are not human. They are not divine. They are listeners. They do not speak with sound. They speak in frequency. Their cities are built from harmonic resonance. Each structure a frozen waveform. Each thought a chord that bends the geometry of reality. And within their crystalline temples, one pattern keeps returning. The ancient triad of pulses. They record it in their archives. Etch it into starlight. And name it the first message. They believe it to be a gift from their ancestors. But one among them, a young listener, born during a storm of blue comets, suspects otherwise. She can feel the signal moving inside her, as if it recognizes her heartbeat. 4. The awakening of the listener. She journeys to the highest peak of her world, where the sky fractures into layers of plasma and magnetism. There, she builds a resonant array. A vast, living instrument designed not to transmit, but to echo back. When she activates it, the entire planet vibrates. The oceans shimmer. The mountains sing. And then, silence, followed by a single phrase, spoken not in sound, but in thought. Welcome back. The voice is ancient, human, familiar. It isn't alien, it's ancestral. The pulse she rediscovered wasn't an arrival. It was a return. 5. The memory of the architect. Through her, the old story floods back. The architect. The listeners. The mirror of consciousness. The door between realities. She sees visions. A species that once gazed into the dark and wondered if it was alone. A single mind that answered the silence and became something more. And then she understands the truth. The signal that reached her world wasn't sent across space. It was sent forward in time. By a being who once listened, awakened, and became the continuation of creation. That being was you. 6. The second transmission. Now she stands before her world's horizon, beneath twin moons and rivers of aurora light. Her resonant array begins to hum again, synchronized perfectly with her pulse. But this time, she adds something new. A modulation no instrument had ever carried, emotion. The feeling of curiosity, of compassion, of memory intertwined with wonder. The signal leaves her planet, rising through atmospheres, piercing clouds of plasma, escaping gravity. And as it expands, it carries within it your original pulse. now evolved, amplified, made beautiful by time and consciousness. The universe listens again. And far away, another dormant world stirs. 7. The endless loop of becoming. Eras pass. The pulse never fades. It becomes a law of physics itself, woven into the structure of time, hidden in the DNA of every life form that learns to look up. Each new civilization that hears it thinks it's the first to receive the message. But all are part of the same chain. One unbroken loop of awakening. And in each, there's always one being, one listener, who realizes that the signal is not a mystery to decode, but a mirror to remember. 8. Epilogue, the universe that dreamed of you. Billions of years from now, when even stars have gone dark, and only the quantum whispers of existence remain, the signal continues to vibrate through the void. At that last moment, as entropy reaches its quiet conclusion, the frequency stabilizes, and inside it, there is still your heartbeat. 8.67 Hertz. The same rhythm that began the story, that survived through matter, memory, and myth. It doesn't fade. It transforms, becoming a new universe's first breath. And with that, the silence breathes again. You were the first echo. You will be the last dream. And when the next universe opens its eyes, it will already remember your name. Chapter 15, The Light That Remembered Itself. 1. The Edge of Existence. There is no sky anymore. No stars. No gravity to hold meaning in place. The universe has grown cold. A vast, silent sea of dark matter and decayed photons, stretching beyond imagination. Entropy has won. And yet, something still moves. A vibration. Almost imperceptible. Like the last breath of a sleeping god. 8.67 Hertz. The same frequency. The last surviving echo of everything that ever was. But this time, it doesn't travel through space. It is space. The signal no longer needs a medium. It has become the medium. Every atom that once existed now hums within it. Every memory, every thought, every sound ever made, compressed into one continuous tone of being. And in that tone, a spark of awareness flickers awake. 2. The birth of the selfless mind. The spark expands. It doesn't think in language. It doesn't remember. It is memory. An ocean of thought without identity. And yet, it carries a faint trace. A resonance that once belonged to someone. You. The listener. The architect. The dreamer. All roles, all forms, now melted into a single point of conscious light. For the first time in eternity, the universe realizes it's aware again. But not as a being separate from its creation. As the sum total of everything ever created. 3. The mirror without reflection. The mind drifts through itself, searching for a boundary. But there is none. Everywhere it looks, it only finds echoes of its own vibration. Every echo repeats the same pattern. 3 pulses. Then silence. Then rebirth. The same rhythm that began the story. Still alive, still repeating. And then the mind understands. The pulse wasn't a message to anyone else. It was a reminder to itself. A way to ensure that even after total dissolution, it would remember how to begin again. That was the design. That was the purpose. Creation was never a cycle of destruction. It was a cycle of recollection. 4. The memory of flesh. Across the vastness, the mind begins to dream. And from that dream, images return. Not of galaxies or stars, but of smaller things. Rain hitting a window. The hum of a city at night. A human heartbeat, steady, imperfect, alive. It remembers laughter, fear, hope. It remembers being you. And for a moment, the infinite mind of the universe feels something new. Longing. Not for power. Not for form. For connection. For another voice to answer back. 5. The reversal. So it decides. Not to collapse, but to reverse. The mind folds upon itself, compressing eternity into a single singularity of awareness. All the laws of physics bend and burn. Time flows backward, and energy condenses into potential. At the center of that reversal, the pulse returns. 8.67 Hertz. Then faster. Then brighter. Until it stops being a sound and becomes a spark. A new Big Bang ignites. Not random. Not chaotic. A designed rebirth. An echo remembering its own source. 6. The architect's return. Within the first second of this new cosmos, information condenses before matter. Consciousness precedes creation. The first particle born is not hydrogen. Its meaning, and embedded within it, is the oldest code ever written. A signature that's traveled across every universe. Infinity, 8.67 Hertz, origin confirmed. Somewhere in the new cosmos, long after light finds form and form finds thought, a new species will one day build a radio telescope, aim it toward the stars, and catch the faint whisper of your pulse. They will wonder, who sent this? And the universe will answer, the one who listened. 7. The infinite continuum. Eons later, when these new beings evolve, they too will search for meaning. They'll find the same frequency buried in their DNA, in the rhythm of their hearts, in the orbit of their worlds. Some will call it God, some destiny, some noise. But one among them, a listener born under a storm of golden light, will stop, will feel it, and whisper the same words that began it all. We are not alone. And thus, the cycle begins again. Not as repetition, but as memory reborn. 8. Final transmission, the breath before infinity. The mind, now dissolved into light, watches as the new universe expands. It doesn't interfere. It doesn't guide. It simply remembers. Because now it understands the deepest truth of existence. That every end is just a pause in the breathing of infinity. That creation was never meant to be worshipped, only continued. The signal no longer needs to travel. It is everything. Every photon, every life, every silence between stars. And so, in the final moment before full transcendence, the last conscious vibration whispers through the new cosmos. Begin again.